You want me to put that on my Tudor?
Harry's wife. The ridiculous Harry's wife. A number of years ago, 5, 6, possibly 7, Harry's wife first came on the world's radar. Purely, of course, as a consequence of being the girlfriend of old Ginger Bollocks, then fiancée, and then wife. In the early stages, it was the only reason why people had heard of her, because otherwise she is an individual of no note. An actress, not a particularly noteworthy one, occupying a cable show, operating a lifestyle blog. Of course, in her own deluded world, she believed that she was far more important, believing that when she undertook little segments showing people around her favourite spots in Toronto, that there was an audience of millions hanging on her every word, that when she undertook interviews in relation to her performance on Suits, that there were millions of fans around the world who were all hanging breathless on what she had to say. Naturally, of course, that wasn't the case, but in her deluded world, she believes that it is. She believes that so many people are fascinated by her, and that so many people want to know all about her world. Yet back then, in those early stages, people gave her a chance. People thought, who's this then? Prince Harry's got a girlfriend. Let's see what happens here. Hopefully he'll be happy. There weren't people immediately wishing any ill on either of them, and there certainly wasn't an outpouring of supposedly racist comments about her. Far from it. But she was essentially given a chance, given an opportunity to prove herself, to demonstrate that she perhaps might be a modernising force within the royal family, that she would bring an extra string to the bow. Of course, we all know how that turned out. But it's demonstrative now that anything that she does, other than through orchestrated PR, is met by the rest of the world with simply a reaction of that across social media she's mocked, that across mainstream media there are opinion pieces and reportage which demonstrate that she's held in contempt, that people dislike her. Where once again she's engaged in one of her many hypocrisies, that ends up being pointed out. But there might have been an occasion where, were she not a narcissist, or, being a narcissist a more sophisticated type, she would remain celebrated, that the unpleasant side of her would remain well hidden, indeed not even spoken about, in the way that certain very successful narcissists portray to the outside world, that they are a figure to be admired, worshipped and celebrated, that their dark behaviours never see the light of day. Unfortunately for Harry's wife, her style of narcissism as a middle mid-ranger meant that she was unsuitable to this level of scrutiny, and therefore has come undone again and again. Back then, if she were a different type of narcissist or not one at all, then it would be likely the case that what she would do would be met with praise, that it would be met with applause, or that it would just be reported on in relatively neutral tones, and that she would not be receiving the ridicule that she does now. But she gets this ridicule because she is ridiculous, and now each and every time it is the case that because whenever she does anything, it's now reported on by so many people with condemnation, contempt, and ridicule. And there is a further example that comes from Daniela Elsa, writing in news.com.au with the headline, "Most ridiculous Harry's wife's claim yet." If there is one thing you can say about royal life, it is often ridiculous. The late Queen was woken nearly every day by the piper of the sovereign, who would follow her from Buckingham Palace to Windsor Castle to Balmoral. King Charles reportedly shrieked when he first saw Gladrap, and it wasn't that long ago. When Prince Andrew used to travel overseas, He will reportedly make his valet bring an oversized ironing board with them. It's been a while since old Andy could leave UK soil without fear of being slapped with some sort of legal paperwork. So how's this for a spot of early in the week irony? One half of the history's most famous self-evictees from the House of Windsor, Harry's wife, the Duchess of Sussex, would seem to be carrying on this tradition of royal ridiculousness. On Tuesday, it was revealed that Harry's wife is set to be one of the honorees at the 2023 Women of Vision Awards, put on by the Ms Foundation, which was launched by her friend, neighbour and living icon, Gloria Steinem. There will be a glitzy event in New York on May 16th, meaning that out there, somewhere, right now, a frazzled stylist is corralling racks of designer black tie looks for the eternally chic Duchess to choose from. Where things start to enter the inadvertently comical is when we get to the Duchess's bio that hails her as a feminist, champion of human rights and gender equity, and global role model. Now, the first three achievements are spot on in my book. I'm not sure I would agree with Daniela Elsa about that, but nevertheless we continue. And she writes, no, where things tip over into the decidedly droll is when we get to those last three words, global role model. Really? For whom? Women keen to parlay a deep rift with their in-laws into lucrative content? People who have always wanted to wear $11,000 worth of clothing from ultra-luxe Italian label Loro Piana to a Harlem school? Those who have long harboured the dream of writing a critical dud of a kid's book? To be clear here, when Harry's wife arrived in London in late 2017 to join the royal ranks, Elsa states that she was thrilled. Finally, the world was going to get an HRH whose values and priorities aligned with every card-carrying feminist out there. A woman who would use her global platform to effect real change for women. Huzzah! Pop the champagne and prepare to watch a duchess take on the patriarchy. And that kind of sort of happened in the 20-odd months that Harry's wife logged on as a working member of the royal family, with her official trips to South Africa and Morocco, which placed huge emphasis on gender equality. Then came Megxit. And what has followed isn't exactly the stuff of feminist legend. I know, many people view her and Harry's outspoken exit as a true moral achievement, as her having stood up to an instant institution and spoken out about a situation she felt was wrong. Interjecting, as you all know, it was nothing to do with that, and it was simply her running away from an institution that she couldn't control, so her narcissism caused her to be to retreat and thus assert control by withdrawing. Elsa continues, convictions take courage after all, but going on Oprah to talk about how rubbish your husband's family were to you isn't exactly Emmeline Pankhurst territory. In the last 3 years, Harry's wife cold called a handful of seemingly unimpressed senators about paid parental leave, lack of boundary recognition, bandwagoning, sense of entitlement, donated a US $25 Starbucks gift card to a leading non-profit working on the cause, and penned a letter about the issue to then House Speaker Nancy Pelosi and then Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer. From 2019 onwards, Harry's wife has been the patron of UK charity SmartWorks. However, she now lives in the United States. It's unclear what this now means. The Archwell Foundation's recent impact report said they had partnered with the National Women's Law Centre and had provided support to Georgetown University Law Centre's initiative on gender justice and was working hand in hand with organisations advocating for paid parental leave, including Mums First. In 2021, she helped rebuild a Texas women's shelter after devastating storms, and last year took part in a conversation with Steinem and journalist Jessica Yellin for Vogue when Roe v. Wade was overturned. Though, if you remember, my analysis of that in parts passing showed she just parroted much of what everybody else was saying. In that chat on the subject of having the Equal Rights Amendment ratified, Harry's wife said, "Well, Gloria, maybe it seems as though you and I will be taking a trip to DC together soon." Spoiler alert, that has yet to happen. Once again demonstrating the future-faking nature of Harry's wife, her bandwagoning and lack of commitment. The fact that she can talk about it enables her to get to the prime aims so she doesn't have to follow through with it. Now, this is all more than you and I have done. Should Harry's wife want, she could be spending her days lolling by the pool rereading the collected works of Jackie Collins and having her housekeeper bring her a fresh green juice on the hour every hour. It is to her credit that she wants to stand for something beyond the power of cashmere contempo casuals. Well, actually, it isn't to her credit, because she only does it because it makes her look good. It allows her to control people. It draws fuel. And of course, if Elsa understood that she was a narcissist, she wouldn't be giving her credit for even wanting to stand for something. But she continues by stating, nor does this quite translate to global role model Dom. The sticking point in all of this is the gap between the Harry's wife hyperbole and the actuality. Consider the company that Harry's wife is keeping among some of the other Women of Vision honorees this year. The list includes Latosha Brown, who co-founded Black Voters Matter, Wanda Irving, who co-founded Dr. Shalon's Maternal Action Project, which is focused on improving black maternal health, and Kimberly Inez McGuire, who is the executive director of URGE, Unite for Reproductive and Gender Equity. Meanwhile, there is Steinem herself, a woman who has truly earned legend status. She went undercover and worked inside one of Hugh Hefner's Playboy clubs, going on to write one of the most famous journalistic exposés of all time. She co-founded the revolutionary Ms. Magazine, National Women's Political Caucus, Women's Action Alliance, and was presented with the Presidential Medal of Freedom, the highest civilian honour in the United States. Her name is synonymous with the global women's liberation movement and the mainstreaming of gender equality, which of course is why Harry's wife cozied up to her by way of character trait acquisition. Today, women the world over, writes Elsa, owe Steinem an enduring debt of gratitude. These are incredibly impressive and tangible achievements. Can the same be said for the Duchess of Sussex? Her Women of Vision bio also sets out this interesting morsel. Harry's wife is noted as one of the most powerful and influential women in the world, topping such lists as Time magazine's Most Influential People, the Financial Times' 25 Most Influential Women, Variety Power of Women, and British Vogue's Vogue 25. Yes, she has appeared on all these lists which ostensibly attest to her power and influence. But take away what a cynic might think of gongs handed out by publications keen to curry publicity, and you have to ask yourself, is the Duchess one of the most powerful and influential women in the world? Most famous, most talked about, most obsessed over on social media, most likely to cause a run on some cool West Coast jewellery brand? Absolutely. In 2016, Harry's wife was, as biographer Tina Brown pointed out, 6th on the call sheet for a moderately successful cable dramedy and creator of a middle-of-the-road blog. Today, the Duchess of Sussex is one of the planet's biggest celebrities, whose every utterance gets covered slavishly by the press, and who has managed to give a 1,000-plus-year-old institution a serious bone-shaking rattle. Her journey from Toronto yoga enthusiast, who allegedly had occasionally set up a paparazzi photo, to someone who has already earned herself lengthy inclusion in the history books, is extraordinary. But that isn't the same thing as wielding genuine power and influence in the spheres that really matter, like Washington, Silicon Valley, Wall Street, or Hollywood. The Duchess has not gone to Davos or the annual Sun Valley Gathering, dubbed summer camp for millionaires, or been asked to address the United Nations. To be fair, she might every year receive passionate requests from all these outfits and simply say no. That, however, is highly unlikely. Nor has the 41-year-old carved out a place for herself at the head of any large-scale women's movements, or is she seen as widely hailed as a leader on any particular front. In 2015, Harry's wife became a UN Women's Advocate for women's political participation and leadership. Despite leaving official royal working duties more than 3 years ago, thus making her a free agent to tie herself to whatever agency or charity she fancies, her connection to the United Nations hasn't been renewed, for whatever reason. Well, I'll tell you what that reason is. She doesn't deem that it's appropriate any longer. Being involved with the UN wasn't because she was actually interested in it. It was because of what it did for her. And now she's surpassed it in her deluded mind, she doesn't need it any longer. Elsa writes, Harry's wife may have done more to try and help the world, women especially, than your garden variety Montecito mum doing the school run in the top-of-the-line Range Rover and worried she might miss her power yoga class. However, nor does UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres have her on speed dial, or are Michelle Obama and Hillary Clinton having her round for a Pinot and a power clutch. Though last year Hillary and her daughter Chelsea did make time for coffee with Kim Kardashian. Harry's wife deserves kudos for her work, truly, but it is quite the stretch to suggest that she is someone shaping tomorrow or truly leading the charge. Here is another not quite irony. Her grandmother-in-law was one of the longest-serving female heads of state in history, and who navigated the choppy, turbulent social and cultural waters of the 20th century. Yes, it was a job she inherited, making her the original Nepo baby, but what Queen Elizabeth did with the throne is a masterclass in learning how to wield soft power and build respect. From day one, Her late Majesty was frequently the only woman in the room, a 20-something, surrounded by a gaggle of stuffy older men with strong opinions. By all accounts, she learned to more than hold her own. My favourite example, when Her late Majesty took the wheel to drive to Saudi Crown Prince Abdullah, reported at breakneck speeds around her Balmoral estate when it was illegal for women to drive in the Crown Prince's homeland. Now that is an example of a global role model, if ever I've heard one. Another journalistic piece which identifies the ridiculousness of Harry's wife. And if only Daniela Elsa recognised that all of the things that Harry's wife attaches herself to, the causes, the organisations, she only does so because of the self-serving nature of what it can provide to her. Because like everything associated with a narcissist, when it comes to dealing with other people, it's purely about the prime aims. And Harry's wife is no exception to that, no matter how ridiculous she is. I'm H.G. Tudor. Thank you for listening.